whatever. We're not here for the skyline. I just happened to be in New York City trying to cover some rallies and anti-mask mandate, stuff here in New York City. So trying to show off the Manhattan skyline. But let's get into it. So thank you for being here, sir. I'd like for you to introduce yourself. What's your name? What are you running for? And then just give us a little quick military background.
Well, my name is Daniel Mercuri, and I'm running for California governor. I've been running since August of 2020, right after I ran for Congress. I'm running predominantly because of the fact that I got exposed to a lot of the corruption that most people don't see on the inside. And I don't know what it's like for other candidates. I just know that as I started seeing favoritism with corporatists, with super PACs, with lobbyists, with representatives for a lot of these technocrats, I started realizing that they're the ones who are really in control. And I didn't know how deep, because once my race was over with, I lost the special election to Congressman Mike Garcia. And, I was getting asked to continue to run and be in office again, try another seat. And I really had to take a step back because, I wasn't quite sure what the hell I was enduring, because for me, it was really confusing, because I started getting threats. I was getting, first they start to butter you up, and then they double down if you don't agree with it. And then I was getting the threats, and I was getting people following me and trailing my home and threatening my family. And of course, as a veteran, that's not what I fought for. And it made me really peculiar or curious as to, how deep this really goes. And so I was close to throwing up my hands. And then, of course, as the lockdowns increased and things were getting worse, and I kept getting asked to be on other people's teams that were, congressional officials or running for city or mayor or city council or even lieutenant governor, that's when I just made the decision to run for governor. And as I've been running, it's just the amount of swamp rats is profound. And It's really difficult. And I realized that this isn't about, for me, it changed from about, good policies, because there's 45, 46 candidates that are now officially certified in California.
Yeah, 45. So it's 24 Republican candidates. There's 8 Democrat. There's, I believe it was 1 Libertarian, and then like a handful of no party, which seems like a huge waste of space.
Right. So I got to know some of the Republican candidates. And I started realizing, a lot of us are on pretty similar pages as grassroots. But I started realizing that it goes a lot deeper. This can't be about policies. I have policies. I got them on my website. I've got a bunch that I haven't even put on my website. And I started realizing that this is about what we're going to do to clean house. It has to be, because you can't negotiate or appeal to the better side of those people who are currently in office right now, because they're the reasoning why we're here in the first place, especially with a supermajority, right? We've had a supermajority since 2018 in California, and then we had a 63 or 65% blue state that still had predominant control back, during Gray Davis. So, it kind of begs the question, really, who's the people that are at fault here? And it's our blue state. It's our legislative branch, including our judges that have ties in with them that I've been discovering along the way of me campaigning. So that's really what this is about. And of course, and as a veteran, this isn't what I fought for. I know you're a vet. I know you're in the military. This isn't, I didn't fight for, communism, and I didn't fight for, socialism or Marxism. None of this garbage I ever fought for. So this is a huge reasoning why I'm here, because I'm getting tired of just the blatant and bold and lies.
Right. Awesome. Well, great. Let's get into some of these questions. My setup is acting up. So the original.
If I don't have an answer for you, I'll get back to you.
For sure. I mean, that's definitely the military way, right? The military way, right? You always have a pen and paper in your pocket. Some a leader asks you a question, and you're like, you know what? Exactly. I don't know that, but I will get back to you. And you write it down, and next day they're like, hey, did you find out that answer?
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. So my original comment, which kind of spurred all this on your post, was I am an independent photojournalist. I have asked these questions of other candidates, and I would like to ask you the same to you, which I had posted on the Jenner campaign, Larry Elder, Trevino, and yourself. So the questions are, what are you running on? What are you running on? What policies? And let's just stop there. So go ahead.
What am I running on? My platform? Well,
sure.
So one is
kind of just like an open-ended question, whatever you want.
Yeah. So the general, when I always hear people say, well, what's your platform? What's your platform? I mean, my platform is starve the government and feed the people, right? My platform is to eliminate the government in such a way that it's a more impotent government, so that the people have greater control over the representative, which is really how it's supposed to be. And it's always been that way. And so things have really changed. And then we have too many, career politicians. So really we need to start working on removing, the politician out of politics, these career politicians that have a stronghold with our technocrats and, these corporations. And of course, we need to end contracts. And these contracts that are held under Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution allows for our state and our representatives at the local, state, and federal level to engage in contracts that the people have to pay off, because under that article, the right to a contract is not limited. And that means that there can be no state law that can prevent the obligation of the fulfillment of that contract. So they are allowed to engage in legal fraudulent concealment, which is why we get stuck with paying, money towards the bullet train to nowhere. Why are we still paying on it? That is because of a contractual agreement that when we put our representatives in charge, or we hand them over the responsibility, we expect them to kind of be just, making sure that they're going to provide more civil liberties and they're going to provide more, sovereignty, and they're not going to allow for an infringement on the free market by allowing companies to monopolize it. But they're actually in ties with it. So my platform right now is to starve the government and feed the people.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, that bullet train has always been something that was one of my questions, but it's just something that's always bothered me because, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm a native Angelino. And, I've grown up hearing about taxes and increase on taxes and, this bullet train that just doesn't ever get worked on, doesn't get built. I mean, they put up this promotional video, like patting themselves on the back that they did like 3 miles in Modesto. And I'm like, you're supposed to be going from San Francisco to Los Angeles, like Modesto, like right. What? Where are those people going to go? And it just like goes in their little town. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, the reason why the reason why that is like I said. So when your representatives or the state legislature or your governor with the legislative branch, they get in ties with making these guaranteed contracts, and they make these guaranteed contracts for the benefit of the people, but the people have to pay through their taxes. So when they give them a guaranteed contract, that contract has to be paid no matter what. Right. And a lot of times we don't read, the underlying issues or what the clauses are in order for this project to be completed. So what ends up happening is that they can siphon money wherever they want, depending on the contract. So they can pull, like Gavin did with our gas tax that's supposed to go towards the roads, can actually be siphoned over to the bullet train to nowhere. And so what this ends up doing is it forces us to have to pay onto that. And then you wonder why, they don't go to jail, is because the contract was agreed upon. And since we voted in that person into office, they don't have to comply with, everybody's screams and rants and raves, because they're obligated to fulfill that contract.
Right.
That's how that works. And a lot of people don't know that. But again, it took me, I don't fault anybody on that, because it took me a hell of a long time throughout this last whole year to figure it out, because I kept wondering, why is everything falling on deaf ears? Right. And so you're in the military, right? We're in the military. One of the biggest things I used to learn is, what is it like, get it right the first time so you have more time to play later, right? You focus on the core issue, get it done, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. So it made me realize, what is the core problem? Why are they getting away with this, with these erroneous contracts proposition, and taxes keep going up? That's why.
Part of that problem too is that people just don't read the bills, and not all of them, but like the Green New Deal, they're talking about like thousands of pages overnight. Clearly nobody read it. But there are a lot of bills out there, like the gas tax that you mentioned. A lot of people didn't realize that they were like campaigning on, it's to fix the potholes and the freeways and this and that, but most of that money went to illegal immigrants. Right. It didn't actually go to the projects that people voted for. But I think part of the problem is that people just go off of Instagram memes or some political commentator saying this or that, instead of actually getting to it and doing the research and really looking at what is it that we're voting on. I know they have these funny names and feel good name, but what does the black and white actually say? What does it say on the contract? What does it say in the bill? So I try to do my best and look into things and kind of inform people about it, but everyone has to take responsibility.
Yeah, everybody has to take time. That's why I tell people, listen, you gotta vet every candidate, right? That includes me. Like, we're not perfect. We're not all going to get it right. That's human. To err is human. I get that. But you got to look at our inconsistencies and in what respect. And then you have to look down at what we write down on our website, and if we write anything down when it comes to our policies or where we stand. And then you got to check out our videos to make sure that we're not double speaking. and that we don't have any ill intentions, or there's not any conflicts of interest if we have business deals on the side or anything like that, or we've signed off on one bill but then we're doing another. Like, we have to kind of understand where, the transparency, but that's not happening. And so this is why a lot of people are confused, because you're already inundated with high taxes and bills, and you're just trying to get by, and you just want to most Americans just kind of want to be left alone and live their life, and they don't want to be in
fun.
No, that's it, right? But now we're not there. Not anymore. We're not,
Yeah, and especially in a state like California where we have so many taxes, so many, you have city tax and, counties, and
Yep.
they're charging you for bags, and they're,
that's a good point you bring up, is that I think about a month ago, I was digging into all of the bills, and I was looking at the state floor notes and the assembly notes, and I started looking at how many bills were being drafted between 2019 and 2020. Give me a realistic number that you think is a good number of like what our legislators should be passing or should be drafting, just off the top of your head.
Well, I mean, for as much as they get paid, I would say like at least 100 a year.
Right. That seems legitimate, and it seems, like something that they should be engaged in. No, they drafted 4,900 bills in between 2019 and 2020. That is not for your benefit. That's why that's way too many bills. That's
right.
That's undermining us in every single way possible. And then, of course, they erode the language. So when you've got 4,900 bills being drafted, 75 of those, I think, passed. Not to mention, they went out of their way to make September 14th. What's September 14th in California now? What are we looking to September 14th? What's that day now?
I have no idea.
It's the election day. It's the final day.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I think you meant a holiday or something. I was like, whoa, like Kobe Bryant Day or something?
Yeah, see, technically it's nothing, except for that's the final day to vote, right? September 14th. Right. Well, they went out of their way to call that day Taekwondo Day. So September 14th, the recall election, final day, the recall day is now Taekwondo Day. Right? So our legislators are hard at work pulling off this kind of crap. You don't believe me? Go to the floor notes. You can find it. You can see it. Yeah. You can dig it up. And they're already at it with just as many bills being drafted with Gavin Newsom, who's just signing away. And this is the stuff you don't see. This is why people don't understand why, how come bills aren't being drafted. This is why I tell people, your candidates, all the candidates are really too busy talking about, I'm going to really bring I'm a good negotiator. I know how to bring people to the table. Let me just tell everybody that's watching, I'm not going in this race to negotiate with anybody. I have no desire to negotiate with anybody that's in office right now, because in a supermajority, they don't give a crap. And when they're a supermajority, there's no negotiating to try to appeal to their better side when they're the ones who bury their head in the sands, right? They're all snakes in the grass, and they're the ones that are causing exactly where we're at right now. So why would I negotiate to a better side that they don't have? No, we have to take the fight to them and start removing them out of office, period. And definitely that's how it works. And yes, you can do it legally, you can do it lawfully, and it can be done by force. But it's taken me a long time to figure out how we're going to do this. And, for the sake of time, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm letting you know, yes, but nobody wants to talk like this, because this is what, Kennedy talked about. And of course, what happened to him? He got assassinated. And I said, I already fought for my country. And I had already had, I remember a wake up moment where we were flying in Black Knight 615, and we were out from the carrier, and we were called over the radio, and we were asked to put ourselves in between us, and I think it was an SA-17, right? And we were it. And at that time, it was my first tour. So all I realized was the hack, the helicopter aircraft commander turned around and said, "Okay, gentlemen, this is what we're here for. We need to protect, the carrier, and we're having an inbound, so it's going to be us in between that and the missile. Are you ready?" And everybody put their hand inside, and the pack, he turned over and he said, "I'm ready to die, sir." And then the crew chief said, "I'm ready, sir." And then the left gunner said, "I'm ready." And then it was me, because I was the junior guy. And all I could say was, "Yes, sir, I'm ready."
Good times, right?
Right? But so when people say, "Oh, what do you know?" or "What, who are you're not a real patriot," you have no idea.
Right.
I was already at that very moment. I knew I was willing to die for it. Well, now here I am again, and I'm not willing to lose it to communism. Win or lose, I'm in this to the end.
Yeah. You never know people's backgrounds, and that's why I like to have these conversations, because we live in a very social media digital world, and everyone just wants to be funny and get noticed and have these dumb conversations over the comment section, which are often not very helpful and not very productive, because 70% of language is body language. So if you can't have that conversation with that person and be able to elaborate and really just take the time to understand, where they're from and what they're about, it's just wasted energy at that point. Just trying to defend yourself which I have to do all the time. But let's go to the next question. What is your policy or your stance on masks or mask mandates and the vaccine?
I'm so glad you asked me that. I actually just got in a conversation with somebody today because they were looking at my mask mandates, what I said on my site, and I hadn't updated it yet with all my other policies and stuff like that. So I was like, I haven't had time to update it. At the time that I wrote it, it was last year, and I had said, well, first and foremost, I don't support mask mandates. At the same time, too, I don't support vaccines. Period. Right? Well, I'm sorry. To me, some of you who are taking the vaccine, God bless you. You do what you want to you, but you're not going to force it on anybody else, right? That what you put in your body is your body. Medical freedom is what I stand on. So to get into the mask mandate, when it comes to the mask mandates, one of the first things that we can do here in the state of California is I always let everybody know I stand on medical freedom. Number two, one of the things that we need to do is, as an executor, you can rescind on all executive orders that are stemming from the health department or the California health director that reports to the governor. So what you can do is you can rescind on that because an executive order can get rid of an executive order. Number two, you can fire the health director. The health director reports to the governor. So let's put in a real health director that's not bought out, that's not listening to the CDC or the WHO. That right there alone is what's going to help eliminate this. And then number three, you can actually end the state of emergency. When you end the state of emergency in the state of California, that forces every government building or government entity or anything, or state agency and health departments to stop in trying to enforce people getting tested or stop people from getting masks. It'll stop all of that, right? Because it's a state of emergency. So that's why all these entities and businesses and schools and stuff like that, because they report, because they're controlled by the state, are enforcing this. So if you end that state of emergency, that alone ends it straight up, right? The other dilemma, though, is people are saying, what about private businesses? So I have two dilemmas, and I put this on my website. People say, I shouldn't be able to go, I should be able to go into a restaurant or into an eatery or into a bar and not be told they have to wear a mask. Under the Constitution, that's technically no, because it's a private business. If the business
right. That's what people don't ever understand.
They don't understand it. A suit and a tie, like how many times, I don't know how many fancy restaurants you've been into, but a lot of restaurants, right? They have a dress code. Their dress code is suit and tie. If it's a suit and tie and mask, well, that's their house rules. However, you cannot arrest, you cannot forcibly harm, and you cannot fine anybody who does not want to comply with your house rules. They can be escorted out by internal security, and they can be escorted out by local law enforcement, but you can't arrest them. You cannot fine them, you cannot charge them, and you cannot physically harm them either, right? So that has to be permitted. But then I see people applying other businesses that are like, yeah, you can't come in if you are wearing a mask. So it's like, here's the thing, but they're a business, right? Private entity, but essential. If it's essential under the Constitution, you have to allow for people, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So part of that is under equal protection under the law, under the Constitution, under the 15th, I think it is 15th Amendment and the 5th Amendment. If that's the case, and you're an essential business, then you have to allow for people to come in, irrelevant if they want to comply or not, because they need food, they need to maintenance their home, they have to maintenance their car. These are things where people have to actually be able to pursue their life, liberty, and happiness because they are a sovereign citizen of the United States and they can travel to and from wherever they want, right? A private business or an eatery or a bar or a restaurant, and they don't want you coming in because maybe you're a jerk off and you're rude to other patrons, they also don't have to let you come in because, well, you're mean to their other patrons, right? So they have a duty to help out others. So there's this splitting of the hair. And a lot of people are like, oh, just end it all. You can't. But here's the thing. If you don't know the law, there is no law. And if you don't know your rights, you have no rights, right?
Right. And then I tell my friends all the time, I see people going to bars and restaurants and standing outside and harassing people that are going in. I don't think that's the right approach. To each their own, right? I think we vote with our dollars.
Yeah.
So if McDonald's says you have to wear a mask and I'm not going to serve you, you go and you say, okay, well, you know what, McDonald's, you lost my business. I'm going to go to Burger King.
Yeah.
And Burger King doesn't tell me that I have to wear it, then make sure I tell all of my friends and I spread the word, hey, we're all going to Burger King now because McDonald's doesn't treat us right.
Yes.
And that's something that people don't understand. Like, they're a business. Yes. They're in it to make money. So they probably don't even care about the mask, but it's all public opinion. Like if they don't put up a mask mandate and they don't, some weirdo that wants you to wear a mask and is going to offend it that you don't wear a mask, well, who are they going to complain to? To the manager. Right. They're going to be like, I don't feel safe here. I don't want to eat here anymore because these other people are eating here. Right. So we have to vote with our dollars. If there's a restaurant that doesn't support us,
And
But
as a governor, the other thing that you can do too is I put it up on my website, is remove all fines from businesses and individuals who have been fined for not following the health department or the health director because they didn't comply with their, their state guidelines, right, on mask mandates or regulations, right? Remove all of that stuff and then leave it up to the people. If exactly like you said, if they want to go in, but they're saying, well, hey, listen, man, I'm in fear of COVID. That's a real fear. I have half of the people I've spoken to with businesses up and down the state of California that are in real fear of COVID because they bought into the propaganda. I don't blame them because the media is great at pumping out fear. But then you have other people that are like, yeah, I don't buy into this, but you have to address the fear. So how do you address the fear when somebody really says, listen, I got a weakened immune system. I don't want to get sick, right? Or I don't want to get sued. Right. So I even addressed that on my website earlier today, which is, really interesting. He brought it up. But I was like, how do we do both? Right. Because of what the mainstream media and these elitists have pumped out, all this fear. And so we really do have a divided world, not a country. We have a divided world where you got legitimate people that are scared out of their mind. And then you got other people who see right through the lies. And now they're clashing. Right. So in a free society, you've got to let those people figure it out for themselves. And you just go to the other businesses that are willing to take your money, that are willing to take your business. And there are plenty of businesses that are willing to open up their doors, irrelevant if you want to wear the mask or not, right? But you can't force it.
right. I mean, anything that has to be forced is never going to be good. When
No.
it's with everything and anything in life. Treating dogs. You beat a dog until it does whatever you want it to do. It's going to do it, but it's not going to like it. Kids,
Right.
a partner, whatever. It's never going to work unless you guys come to an agreement and figure it out. So
Exactly.
awesome. We kind of talked about taxes already, but what about taxes and what about rebuilding our economy and the bullet train? But go ahead.
So, well, I'll sum up taxes real quick. So another why I say starve the government, feed the people is through taxes. So when it comes to your taxes, we're going to push back against the federal government and the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, right? That basically induced the Income Tax Act, right? So one of the things that I tell people is the state of California, under proposition, you cannot tell me that people will not want their taxes cut by 2/3. Plain
Right.
as day. If the people vote for a 2/3 tax cut, that money goes right back into their own pocket that they can invest into their own businesses, their own accounts, another family member or friend, right? That's their money. Number two, a lot of people don't know about the revocation of election. Some people do, and they get caught by the IRS. But as a governor, the governor has every right to kick out the IRS. A lot of people don't know that. Yes, you can stop federal agencies to be kicked out or put a moratorium on. Why? Because here in the state of California, if we revoke our status as a state, that means you're no longer going to sign the contracts. Remember, I said Article 1, Section 10, right? The fulfillment. But you can opt out. See, what they didn't tell you is because they're permitted to engage in legal fraudulent concealment, they're concealing from you. They're concealing the fact that you can opt out of paying into the IRS and to the Federal Reserve. It's called a revocation of election. But as a state, no one's ever done it as a state. So as a state, people are like, oh, it's going to cost millions of dollars. No, it's not. It's a downloadable link that you give and provide the forms to everybody who is a tax-paying citizen to opt out of the Federal Reserve Income Tax Act. The federal government and Congress is going to be livid, but that doesn't matter because the enumerated powers under the Bill of Rights is left up to the state. So those shareholders of the Federal Reserve can take a flying kite, right? And once you do that, it's almost like seceding from the union without seceding because now you keep all of your federal money. So if the federal government wants your money, they have to petition you for it the right way, which means they got to earn your respect. And if they don't, we as a state and the fifth largest economy don't need it, right? We don't
That's
need
what
it.
people don't understand is California makes a lot of money.
Right?
Like California with the Port of Los Angeles and the Central Valley growing 70% of the nation's like fresh fruit and vegetables. Like we are a very important state.
We part of the world.
Yeah, and everything that happens in California travels east, and we set a lot of the trends and a lot of the taxes and these mask mandates and all this stuff.
Yep.
It's a ripple effect through the country, and if we don't get it right here in California,
This is the only way to get it right. I'm telling you right now, those people in office right now cannot be negotiated with. And you cannot sit there and think that you're going to be able to make a deal because they want to run the state like a business. So you asked me, how would we actually help out our businesses come back? When you actually prevent us having to pay into the Federal Reserve any longer, right? That money gets reinvested back into the state. You cut the taxes by 2/3 through proposition, it becomes law. When that becomes law, the state can't do anything, your legislators can't do anything about it, and all of those back-ended deals become null and void because you revoke that status as a state and everybody in it. That's 40 million Californians. They're never going to be able to stop that, but nobody wants to be able to do that. And that's just one area that we can affect when it comes to dropping taxes down, ensuring they go into the right area. And then the last thing too that we can also do is, as a governor, I can redefine a state of emergency against our legislative branch because we swear an oath to support and defend against foreign and domestic. They can be deemed as a domestic enemy against the people of California under the governor's state of emergency or California Emergency Services Act. No one's ever done that, but there's no other way to bring the fight to them. And this is what I plan on doing as a governor. But see, we don't have anybody with spine because everybody's too busy about trying to make deals. They want to make a deal. They're going to bring people to the table. They're going to negotiate. When you treat the state, when you run the state like a business, you impinge upon a free market. And when you impinge upon a free market, right, then you force the people to have to meet a profit margin. Well, you're not a profit margin. You're a community, you're a people. You have no business in trying to meet the state's obligation of your representatives that's set up for you to have to meet a profit margin under the contracts that they made behind closed doors. That's why nothing gets solved, and that's why they don't go to jail, even though they violated their oath. So that's another thing that we're going to do under the state of emergency is to perform investigations when I can also stop and prevent all federal activity operating in our state without going through the sheriffs first, because under the California state constitution, this thing stipulates that your sheriffs are voted in by the people. And because they're an oddity, you can't just get rid of them. So they are the key factor here in the state of California, and most states have their sheriffs. Federal agents will be under my administration, will have to report if they want to operate to the sheriff. And then the last thing that we can do is to control the board of supervisors so that our economy opens up and our schools open up the right way, is because they control the purse. Well, under the California state constitution, our legislators gave authority over to the board of supervisors, meaning they gave them power, they gave them to legislative power, they gave them judicial quasi powers, and they gave them executive powers. That's too much power for one set of 5 people. You take the purse away from them and hand it over to the sheriffs, they control their own purse. When they control their own purse because the people allowed for that, then your board of supervisors loses their executive power. So that's another way that we're going to get it back, because now the sheriffs will operate directly under the governor, not the AG, not the attorney general, but under the governor, to start getting people and start removing forcibly by law because they violated their oath and they violated the Brown Act, because too many of our board of supervisors up in the state of California have met in secret. Well, they violated the Brown Act and they violated Article 1, Section 3. They can all be forcibly removed by law. That's how we're going to get our economy controlled and putting it back and opening up the free market. It's not hard. It's really not difficult. You just need someone with spine.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people talk real nice, and it comes down to action, fighters, and really just getting into it. So
I know I threw a lot out at you, but like I've been immersed into this stuff for a year now. You know, I was like, wow, the answers are just staring us in our face, and we're so inundated. The people do not have time to really. Yeah,
it's like we were talking about before. It's just like, look here, look. You're all over the place, and you don't know what's your target. You know, there's just too many things popping up, and
exactly.
Yeah, it can be very overwhelming. Let's go to the next one. The homeless. What about the homeless? California homeless population was statewide 161,548 as of 2020.
Yeah. Well, that's easy.
What about veterans and getting the help that they deserve, which is kind of rolled into the homeless problem?
Yeah. So first, with just the general homeless as a whole, the reason why the homeless are able to, why it's still growing and why it's still expanding is due to the fact that if you notice where they hang out or they can congregate are in the major metropolitan areas, the majority of them. And the reason why is because the cities want them to stay there, because when they have a crisis on their hands, the cities can request more federal aid or more federal funding due to the crisis. So they perpetuate the crisis on purpose. That's why a lot of that money goes to like big projects like Project Room Key and a lot of other nonsense, right? is because they need that money, and there's no real fiscal oversight committee looking into the money. We as the people, we're so inundated, we think it's all good because they put a financial advisor or somebody who's previous CFO to manage the money. All they're doing is basically they're basically just kind of working the books. And so we'll never truly understand where that money went because there's no real fiscal oversight. It's kind of like the fox watching the house. No one's really paying attention, right? So that's why the homeless keeps increasing, is because they get that money. As a governor, I can prevent the cities and the city councils and mayors from requesting from the federal government any more federal aid and federal funding, right? What that does is going to force all the nonprofit organizations that we have, I think it's like over 612, 620 here in the state of California, that are already through. Yeah. And remove the red tape so that they can actually get the homeless off the street by tying them to real estate investors who there are more vacant property, houses, and apartment complexes than there are homeless. So why aren't we using them? And then give them a tax incentive to write off for allowing their buildings and apartments or houses to be retrofitted out for the homeless, right? Make it an incentive. But then here's the thing, you have to standardize it under the Constitution. So under the California State Constitution, there is low income housing. It's standardized. So why aren't we standardizing homeless? Because if you standardize homeless, you can't make a profit. That's another way that you starve the government, and you open it up by preventing them from doing this. Then you standardize it under the Constitution, and then you allow for the standardization to work with the nonprofits and real estate investors to allow to get them on the street, because most of them require a facility. They don't all have facilities, right? Because they're dealing with people who are mental instability. They are dealing with people who are just hungry, people who are down on their luck, and like you said, people who are veterans, right? And then in the state of California, like they do in Texas, no veteran has to pay for college. I fail to see why we're not taking care of our veterans here in the state of California in sort of similar fashion, right? You literally threw your life on the line for your country, and yet it's really hard because even when I got out, nobody would hire me, right? As much as I get people patting me on the back and shaking my hand, and I truly am humbled and appreciate that, no doubt I know you do, that doesn't put food on the table. That doesn't provide me an opportunity. So when I worked for, when I came to Los Angeles, I actually was the one who created the flow chart on how veterans can utilize their VA by getting paid. Even though we have a work-study program, what the colleges didn't know was it was a benefit for the colleges to actually provide a job opportunity where the college campus was in need of a body. And they didn't realize how many bodies that they needed. A lot of teachers need a teacher aide. A lot of maintenance need extra assistants, right? Security needs extra bodies too, right? And this afforded them to work in admin. It afforded them to work in different departments of education where you could work with the dean. All these positions were there, but they didn't know that it wasn't going to cost them anything because you get the GI Bill, or the GI Up, or the GI Forever, and there's so many different GI Bills, we can, as a state, ensure that there are, for every veteran, every college or community college has to provide an opportunity for that veteran so that they can acclimate when they get out of the military. And then it doesn't even come out of the pocket. In fact, the schools get $20 a head. I think it's 30 now. Every veteran that signs up for their school, and it goes straight to the administrative department. But that money will be recycled for the veterans on the campus that are working there to be built up as a pool of money for those who also need help, right? But we're not doing that because we don't have a veteran in office who's thinking this way, who actually was in the trenches in this the way I was. So this is how I helped out veterans in Los Angeles alone through the community college district when I handed over my flow chart. I don't know what they did with it after that. It went into work for a year or two, and then I was out of the community college at that time. I went to Los Angeles Valley Community College. And so that was the biggest thing that I did, because I was getting tired of how veterans were getting mistreated, which also helps them out if they have mental instability or they're suffering from PTSD, which a lot of vets do. I did. A lot of vets do and don't even realize it.
Right. Yeah. That's for me. That was a question and a topic very close to my heart, because I left. So I was National Guard, then active duty, and then I went into the reserves. And yeah, I was trying to go to school and trying to figure out what to do with my life after the military. And like you said, there was a lot of people patting me on the back and, oh, thank you for your service, sir, and all this stuff. But when it came down to it, you have people voting against veterans and veteran bills and things that would help us out. But more than that, finding a job was just impossible. For 2 years, I couldn't find a job. And I ended up becoming homeless and living out of my car. And I kind of got into, a little bit of my backstory. I've set up a pet care business because I could sleep at other people's houses and get paid for it. So I said to myself, well, if no one's going to give me a job, I got to, make an opportunity for myself. Not a lot of veterans have, sometimes the motivation, because depression is a real thing, and it's really difficult to get out of bed sometimes, and problems just compound, and I used to go down to Skid Row and feed people and do I would buy pizza out of my own pocket, and I would hand out pizza, and I would often talk with a lot of them, and it would turn out to be a lot of veterans, and it was like one thing after another, and this and that, and I went through that, where I had my father pass away, then I had a divorce, and then I became homeless, and it was just one problem after another. And some people, especially in the military community, veterans, they drink a lot. The military is all about drinking, and that's just the culture. And so some of these people, they don't seek help, and they get down on their luck, and they go down the rabbit hole of that.
Yeah.
So
I totally hear you. I was the same way. I didn't even know I was having nightmares until my girlfriend at the time was waking me up, and I had no idea. But and this made me aware of a lot of people who get out don't even sometimes know that they end up suffering from PTSD just because you're so high up. Like, how many war zones did you serve in? How many did I serve in? That the intensity level. It's like if you go in and you're 18 years old in boot camp, it's like you come out of boot camp and it's like welcome to 30, right? That growth spurt, like you don't have time to really kind of adjust, and you're in such a high stress environment with your life on the line. A lot of people don't realize that by the time once it ends, you almost don't know what to do. And so I think they do a tap class for a couple of days. That's not nearly enough. Some people can acclimate in a few months and maybe a year. Others, it takes years, and people don't understand this. And so as a veteran, no, they're going to be right up there as top of taking care of them and making sure that they have the time that they need to acclimate. We're also going to make it an incentive for businesses that are out there to hire veterans, so that they can work towards figuring out who they are and what they are. Because when you take that identity away as a veteran, you're kind of like a leaf in the wind. You're not really sure where to go, what to do. It took a lot for me, because people like you, I was close to being on the streets. I really wasn't generating a lot of money. I was trying to go to school and figure out what I really wanted to do, like you. And then, there were bad things going on around me as well, and people trying to take advantage. And it happens. People take advantage of veterans, and it's a shame. And we need to do a lot better for it. And I know the federal government just writes a blank check and hands it off. That doesn't do anything. That does absolutely nothing for our veterans. So I'm right there with you when it comes to trying to take care of our vets. Perfect.
I'm running low on time, but we're almost through it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about illegal immigration in the state, and the bill offering them driver's licenses, which allows them to vote illegally as well as drive on our roads and get insurance and all that stuff?
Yeah, no, I'm completely against illegal immigration. And so every illegal alien, as far as I'm concerned right now, they're illegally here. They've broken the law. So the only way that we're going to be able to get a clampdown on this so that we can prevent this is a governor has to put a moratorium on our borders. And that does not just mean our southern borders. We have problems at the northern. We have problems at our docks. The docks need to be shut down and or heavily inspected every container that comes in. Not one, and then because they send in a batch. Like, say there's 10 containers coming in from one country, and then there's another batch coming in from another country, right? Well, that's 20 containers. So they only inspect one or two, and then they move on to the next batch, right? No, every container is going to be fully inspected visually. They have to do it. And if you don't do that, then those containers aren't going to come in. And any container containing human beings, we will never in the state of California accept any commerce from that country, period, until they take care of their problems. Number two, when you shut down the borders, right, you put a moratorium on that border. And when you do that, we can also, as a state, refuse to see any more applications for asylum seekers and those seeking refugee status, right? But you can't do that until you close down that border and you lock it down. And then number three, you have to expand on the wall. We have to. In fact, the state of California, we already had a group of volunteers that raised $20 million of their own, of the people, to actually build a wall. there's no reason why the state of California cannot allow for the people to have a stake in protecting their own land if that's something that they're willing to do. Let them, because essentially the people would have to pay the government to raise the money for continuing the wall. So let the people do it then. Let them have a stake into it and increase the money. There's already a surplus that we have for various things in the state of California and open general obligation bonds that can be used for anything. Use that to increase border security with physical able bodies up and down to extend our ability to monitor better. And then what you have to do is the people that are already here, if you're already in the jails, you're going to finish your time, whatever, and then get extradited, right? You're going to get out because the people have to pay for people in prisons. And people are like, oh, no, that's not how it works. That is how it works. And then the other thing is that if you're here, but you're working and you've never broken the law, and now you have kids that are born here, I tell people the only way that we're going to get that under control is to get them registered so that they have to go pay into the system. But they won't pay into the system if they think they're going to be arrested. So you want us to stop having to pay out. You need to open the door to go get them. But you're not going to find them when you're hunting them down. So you're going to have to give them a carrot. And that carrot is come out, come register, go take your civics duties class, and then get educated on what it means to be a civilian, an American, and then you're paying now into the system like everybody else. You have to pay your taxes, right? They won't be high under my administration, but you've got to get them going. I'm not for separating families, right? If you came here, you've been here for 25 years now, you're like, you came here at 20 and now you're 50, and you haven't really broken the law. You've never been in trouble with the law. Now you're married and you've got 2 kids or 3 kids now. Like, I'm not going to send you back to a place. And I know this doesn't make people, but here's the thing. They're already here. And they haven't done anything else other than they try to leave, that area. But I will not do that at all without shutting down the borders. It doesn't work. So Ronald Reagan tried to give amnesty. It didn't work because he never closed the borders, right? Previous governors gave amnesty, but they didn't close the borders. Los Angeles, not Eric Garcetti, but Vito Carosa, he allowed for amnesty and then sanctuary status. But you're not going to have sanctuary status here because you're violating the law. And those cities and those city council members under my administration are going to be fined, investigated, and then removed because they violated their oath, which is to the people. So we have to do it legally and lawfully. But here's the key. The people have to vote on it, meaning that through proposition, if you're okay and the people want these people that have been here for 25, 30 years now, they've never been in trouble with the law, and they've got family, and they're working with businesses, farmers, other businesses, factories, up to the people to decide if they're okay with that. You have to leave it in the people's hands. This is how people have control and have a stake in their government. If the people say no, then those people are gone, right? So this is how you do it. But nobody wants to go in this direction because, they want to leave open borders. Well, if that's the case, well, then why isn't everybody being tested for COVID? You see the audacity and stupidity? So, and I have farmers too saying, hey, I've got people that have been working with me for 25 years and, they live here now. Like they're part of the community. They don't vote. And so I have to adhere to what's the balance. The key thing is going to go into the people's hands. I will propose why, and I will go to all counties, but it's going to be left up to the people. And if the people say no, as a governor, you have to adhere to the people because under the Constitution, it says that the people are there to instruct their representatives. So as a whole, it has to be the people. That's how this works.
Right. Well, I appreciate your time. We got to wrap it up. That was my last question, was about the sanctuary cities status, stuff like that, because that's infuriating that we have federal agencies that it's their job to try and protect cities and do this job, but we give these city mayors, they just make up their own little rules and make sanctuary cities, and
which makes them violate. That's a violation of their oath of office to the people. It's not to an illegal, it's to their constituents. It's not to the criminal who came here from another country. It's to the people that pay their taxes and voted into office. So when you do that, you violated your oath. But there isn't a single governor that's willing to go arrest them or fine them, charge them, and then have them judged by a jury of their peers. There's no contract for that. If they engage in that, then they violated their oath. That's the problem. Nobody wants to do that. So I have no way in support for sanctuary cities. Or sanctuary state. No sanctuary state, period.
Yeah, that too. Well, with that, thank you for your time. I appreciate you, taking the time to answer some questions, and good luck to you on September 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kenny, right? So
yeah,
Kenny,
that's right.
Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for your service as well, and have a good one.
All right, take care.